All
Same.
right. Hello.
Hmm.
We just lose her.
This happened to me before. I think it might be, make sure you don't have another tab with the link open in it. No?
Oh
Okay.
no.
We can wait for...
Someone is connected to two devices. It might be Jeff.
Apologize.
Not to call you out.
Someone may have their speaker too loud. And sometimes the internet don't want sometimes the internet don't want us to be great, y'all. Like literally
Here we are.
that's what it is. Sometimes the internet does not want us to be great. And we have to deal with it and we have to make adjustments, right? But that is okay because we
And literally, as she said it, boom.
gonna make it do what it gotta do, but it's gonna
That's
be
right.
all right. We're gonna make it do what it's gonna do. So hey, hello, and welcome everyone. Happy Friday, January 7th of the new year 2022. I am your host, Vonda Page, and welcome to the group chat. And welcome to the very first edition of a new group chat show called Radical Equity. So, hey, and welcome, Radical Equity Day, Friday, January 7th. And so, just for people who may not have seen any previous editions of the group chat, let me just do a little bit of intro and tell you how it goes and what it's about. So, as I told you, I'm your host, Vonda Page. And what I like to do is I like to have conversations with smart people who get it. And the Living Corporate Network is a media network that is all about the amplification of the voices and experiences of Black and Brown people at work. And because of that, right, I get together with, like I said, smart people, thought leaders, founders, technologists, all types of business people, whether you're in, education, nonprofit, high tech, engineering, insurance, or whatever, because I'm trying to talk to professionals that are doing things that are really driving change. So anybody who knows me and knows what I'm about, I'm all about radical change and trying to really get to conversations that lead to solutions and talk to people that are really taking action to do stuff. So we on this show, just like on Radical Change, on Radical Power, and any of the other group chat shows, we don't have any fluff type conversations. We get down to the no BS, down to the nitty gritty, and call things as I see them. Right? I call balls and strikes. We like to do the latest news and see what's happening. Whether we talking about what's happening in tech. And specifically, right, in this conversation, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about insurance, right, as a sector, as well as those pieces that really have a lot to do with what equity looks like in that space. So, with that, I want to first say welcome to everyone. And what I want to do is I want to kick it off with some introductions. So, I want Alyssa to go first, and then I'm going to have Danny go second and Jeff third, just to make sure we have all the technical stuff ironed out. Because sometimes, I'm telling y'all, sometimes technology don't want us to be great. So we gonna be great despite of it, okay? And we gonna do what we gonna do. And somebody told me yesterday, hey Dottie, hey Dylan, somebody told me yesterday that as long as the content is fire, it doesn't matter if we have technology challenges. So with that, Alyssa, how you doing, girl? What's up?
Pretty good, V. How are you? Alyssa
I'm good.
Stampf. I am CEO and co-founder of Ensure Equality, but I really met Vonda through an interracial sisterhood, which we are starting and launching again for the second cohort. And we started talking about how does it look in insurance? How do we get the voices out there? How do we start talking to people to amplify, again, the voices that need to be amplified the most, because that's part of our mission as well. So that's how Vonda and I started talking. And then as we started talking, that's how Danny and Jeff came aboard. And I'm really excited to have the conversations with the four of us. Danny.
Me too, me too, me too. Danny. And Danny got the flavor. First of all, I have to acknowledge the glasses game, right? Because, you know, as a
Strong.
fellow, you know, spectacle wearer, the glasses game is on point, right along with them eyebrows, I just had to say. So
Bless
take it
you.
away. Tell everybody about you. That's what I'm just
Bless
saying. I'm just saying.
Bless you, because you know I took an extra 5 to 10 minutes in the mirror this morning because I knew I was going to be on with you guys. So I'm Daniel. I hold many titles. I'm the executive vice president of marketing and sales for an insane women-led insurtech consulting firm. We're based all over the country. I live in San Diego. I also am the co-founder of Insure Quality, which is the nonprofit that Alyssa and I started together. We met through, I'll just say, be honest, Alyssa and I met through an anti-sexism rant on LinkedIn,
Yes.
where Jeff is king in this realm. Like, he is the actual prince of LinkedIn. So I'm really happy
It's true.
for Jeff to be on this. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to talk. I wear a lot of different hats in the sense of like diversity. I'm a foster father. I'm Mexican. I'm gay. I'm vegan. I'm Jewish. I check a lot of these boxes. So
I just want to hang out. You just said everything that just made me happy. I'm like, we need to be hanging out. There was a comedian, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like years ago, and it was a gay guy, and he was on stage, and he's like, if you don't have no black women friends, like, what kind of life you leading? Like, you should be a person that black women want to hang out. And then it was talking, I'm all like, we hanging out, and I'm just thinking about how much does it cost to get a flight to San Diego.
Join us in February.
But it's
let's do it.
The
taco is the best. Once you have it there, you never go back.
In San Diego?
Yes.
Let's go.
Like the street tacos in San Diego. Like, once you experience that, your whole life is messed up.
Good to know.
Well, I'm down. I'm down.
So intro yourself, Jeff, now that you've talked about tacos.
So first of all, I'm the guy that brought up San Diego street tacos. You know, if you never experienced it, when you go to San Diego, don't go anywhere else. Find a little mom and pop street taco, and your whole life is going to be blown. I've been in insurance probably 10 years now, on the captive agency side for 8. And the last 2 years, co-founded 2 companies in the insurtech space. And one is on the distribution side, one is on the lead generation side, and it's an exciting space to be in. And I met Alyssa a couple weeks ago, and it was like, you know, love at first sight, right? We start talking, and then, you know, now I'm on this podcast with y'all, so it's a pleasure to be here, you know.
Well, welcome. I'm so glad. I'm super happy. I can't wait to have this conversation. And so, you know, what I really want to do, for those of you who are familiar with me, familiar with Radical Change, you know, I like to always, in the beginning of a conversation in a topic, I want to kind of go back, and I want to give people some foundational knowledge, some foundational understanding, and things like that. And a lot of, you know, when we think about anything that we know right now today in 2022, everything has roots, everything has history, everything has background, right? Everything starts from somewhere. And a lot of times, right, the original intention of how a sector or a field or something might begin, right, we may be familiar with it, we may not. The other thing is, it may evolve and change over time, right? Things that may have started off with a decent intent, right now we're like, OMG, WTF is happening, because this is all a bunch of nonsense. And so me, myself, having gone through I'm in the process of a whole insurance kind of situation with a whole homeowner situation. This is really good and timely. And I feel like, it's going to be, you know, educational. But even before we get to that, let's just kind of talk about the history of the insurance sector, because we're going to be talking about equity and what that looks like. But let's just talk about, when we say insurance, let's talk about what are we talking about in the biggest kind of categories, and then we can get into it, because Jeff, you were saying some things, distribution, this kind of side, and that was kind of more jargony. So let's start with some foundation, and then we can get into it. So
Sure.
whoever wants to jump in, maybe E, you go first,
I
and
can
you
start.
give the
Yeah.
foundation, and then let's just get into it.
Now, it really depends on how far back you want to go, because if you think about insurance in the way that we think about it now, it's to protect or indemnify somebody for a loss. And there's first evidence of this back to Hammurabi Code. But when you first start to see it fix with, or when you first start to see it in the manifestation it is now, or closer to it, it's with marine insurance. And with that, and I know that this is what you're hinting at, Vonda, there's a deeper, darker side of insurance where insurance actually played a role in the slave trade of enslaved people. So we have a history that goes way back that has its hands in things that we need to take account for and talk about.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's how we started off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
listen,
we're going.
Jeff,
We're
I don't
going.
mess around. You haven't watched none of my replays,
I am
man. You
gonna
got to
take
know
another
I don't
sip
mess
of
around.
coffee right now.
You take a
Prepare.
sip. You can take a sip. We can all get a little hydrated on that one.
But it just goes to show that, like, this, I think this is something Danny and I have talked a lot about. For a centuries old industry, it's very unlikely that we haven't messed up some stuff. I mean, let's be honest. So we're kind of taking a look at it from the standpoint of, how do we take account for our past? How do we rectify where we're at now? And how do we move forward? And I think that's kind of where the conversation has to start, is like, okay, so let's acknowledge where we came from and let's figure out where we are now so that we don't have to do this again. Danny, weigh in.
I mean, so funny for me, like, so I have a different, I don't have a different perspective. I have a different view coming into the conversation, because I did not come from the world of insurance. I come from a world of banking, finance, and in fintech, right? So finance and insurance, they've always kind of been like kissing cousins to a degree, right? And I've seen, in my experience working in finance and working in banking and working in fintech, there is heavy regulation, and I mean cultural regulation around what finances have done in the past. Like the Community Reinvestment Act started in 1974. Check that, Google it, whatever. But it's like, if you work for a financial institution that does banking, by law, your company has to meet a certain amount of hours given back to impoverished areas or underprivileged areas because of redlining that happened a lot during the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s and the 60s. So culturally, finance found a way where they're like, okay, guys, you're hurting America, you're redlining. Thank 1977. Thank you. Right there. It was a hard line in industry. It was a hard line in regulation that kind of made everybody think of practices in a completely different way, and the way they engaged it. Now, you're talking about how we literally, there was literal insurance on people, on boats, and we don't have one law, one regulation, one note of iota for culture to kind of not stop this coming through. That is, I can't say that we have the ability to change regulation right now, but I mean, maybe that's a direction where most people should go, because in finance and whatnot, I mean, it's pretty parallel. I think it's crazy.
So I mean, I think that's an extremely important point to talk about a little bit, right? Because when the history of something, however it started, right? The history of it plays a very significant role on how it's played out, how it's enacted, and the impact on it today. So, Jeff, you were saying when you were doing your introduction how you had some different components, right, of insurance sector experience. So now, right, kind of take, what Alyssa and what Daniel were talking about, that historical piece, right? And maybe frame it a little bit for us to help understand the state of it today, right? So as a layperson, right, with for me not having that background, right, what is it that I need to understand about the insurance sector, the history of it, and how that kind of plays out today?
So I grew up in the 90s. I came here as an immigrant, and I grew up in the 90s.
So wait,
Um,
back up before a second.
sure.
Meaning you were a teenager in the
Yeah.
90s or a kid in the 90s?
Well, teenager. I came here when I was 11, so
Okay.
almost teen. So I grew up on a group of music called Wu-Tang Clan. And during the Wu-Tang era, we had a song called Cream, which stands for
Cash
Cash
rules
Rules
everything
Everything
around
Around Me, right?
me.
So that that used to play a huge factor back in the day, when there's a thing called The Three Rules by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He who holds the sword make the rule. Who hold the gold write the rule. He hold the mirror, reflection on the mirror, know yourself, knows the rule, and knows how to play with the rules. Back in the day, we used to have countries go to war, colonize each other, right? Like the French, the Portuguese, the Spain, the English, and that made a lasting impact on the globe. But now we don't need to go to war with each other to conquer each other. We have economic war, and we have economic policies, we have economic trade, we have disparity in economic trade. So we can control other countries by just making trades happen, right? And that's on the macro level. You go to smaller level. He who hold the gold is going to write the rules. Let me share some disparity with y'all. You can go to Google, do a demographic research on United States population by breakdown of what percentages: whites, Asians, Hispanics, Native Americans, yada 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 yada. And then you can go do the more research on female versus male. This past year, Robinhood, the app, went public IPO.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest thing in IPO by Robinhood is it's the number one app for millennials and Gen X? I can't remember what Gen I'm following now. So, but let's just say millennial, right?
Millennial.
The number one app usage is the millennials. And here's the statistics I pulled up because I done my research for this panel. In the next 25 years, as much as $68 trillion from 45 million US households will be passed down. That's the people who don't necessarily have the money right now, but their pop, their mom, their grandpa has been passing money down. And the velocity of money is so different. So back in the 1940s, if I pass $100 down, I might make another $100 at best in the next 10 years. But right now, you see Bitcoins, cryptos, Solana and, Ethereum, they grew by 800 to 9,000% in 1 year, right?
Yep.
And then you have home ownership in the United States drastically changing with the cost of homes going up significantly because our buying power is going down due to 7% inflation. So the commodity rising at a fast level as ever before. Shortage of labor, cost of materials, steel, aluminum, all that stuff. So right now I did more research because I was like, I want getting deeper. Transfer of wealth. 10 million Americans have on average 98,000 per year income on rentals. Let that sink in. And how many of that percentage are minorities? Let that sink in. And then average landlord in America have 3 properties. There's over 17 million landlords in America, and they own 22.7 million rental units. So what I'm getting at is how many of those 17 million percent, what do you think the diversity of women and minorities will be that 17 million? I did a little bit deeper dive. Surprisingly, I was shocked by the statistics. 43% are women who are landlords.
Oh, nice.
Right. I was not
It
expecting
shouldn't
that.
be nice, but that's nice to know.
Yeah, that's surprising.
And, we're talking about like some of the really messed up numbers in America, and some of those really messed up numbers, maybe Native American, how their success in poverty is, and also Black women in America. There was statistics I watched. The Wire is an old show. Like my wife and I were watching it, and it was like 1 out of 4 Black women in America will experience marriage. They will go through a wedding. So that means 3 out of 4 are single mom their entire life, or single woman, right? So single mom, single woman, 2 separate things. But you got to get to the next level of wealth, and real estate has been one of the most stable hedge against inflation in our lifetime. And that was just a mind-blowing statistics. But here's the crazy part. So I just told you what that number is of the people who are landlord owners, 17 million, right? But you add that to the fact that the next 25 years, Americans will be receiving $68 trillion of passed down inheritance. So wealth is the knowledge. So the people who have the knowledge versus the people who don't have the knowledge will be receiving the $68 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add that to the fire of these people who already understand how to build real estate portfolios. And now we're talking about a huge gap of wealth coming. I mean, now we're talking about, the rich versus the poor, the middle class. The middle class is shrinking. But now in the future, I believe
There's not going to be a middle class.
No, the gap of the wealth is going to really extend. And I might give a really unpopular advice, go against my minority immigrant way of thinking and what my parents brought me. So my parents brought me from China when China was poor in the 90s. It wasn't China today, right? They brought me over here for better opportunity, freedom to pursue liberty, right? And also happiness. But at the same time, like, when they brought me over here, they risked all the things, like leaving their homeland, leaving their family, leaving all they know, go to a country that they know nothing about. But the thing is, when they came over here, they went from high risk tolerant to risk averse. So when they left, they made a huge high risk choice. When they came over here, they made a huge low risk choice, and they're looking for jobs instead of building business. And they want their kids to go to college. If you look at a lot of, maybe not just Asians, maybe Hispanics, maybe African American, like they want their kid to go to college. You ask their parents, what's the number one dream for your kids? And they will say college. Mm-hmm. But the problem with college today is the only thing that have kept up with the growth of Bitcoin in the last 20 years, the trajectory of the growth of Bitcoin, is the cost of college. So if any listener on this call been to college, I hope you went to college 20 years ago versus last 5 or last 10 years, because the cost of college has been going up crazy like Bitcoin does. And so now, let's just say you are a smart, intelligent Black female. You get out of college. You're ready to go conquer the world. You are equipped maturely, emotionally, and intelligently, but you're not equipped financially. You are set back at a 22% interest from Fannie Mae. Just look at the difference of if I want to go apply for a $100,000 college loan versus a $10,000 business loan. Look at how big disparity it is to get either one. One becomes super easy, like that is a new financial handcuff. We talk about slavery. I mean, you open a call with slavery. The new slavery is called interest rate.
Yes, it is.
Fannie Mae is the biggest slave. Ooh, I might be careful what I say next.
You are right.
I'll leave that. I'll leave that because I don't know.
There's so much there, Jeff.
Right?
There's a lot there.
But that's the financial handcuff is through debt system. And you guys ever watch a Matrix? Matrix was a show that I grew up with. You know, they came out with a remake, but one's always the ish to me. When he was unplugged, I came out of the movie theater. I said, I want to be unplugged, right? So at the end of the day, when they find a way to unplug us from the ships and put us in the cotton field where Chinese immigrants came over here, where labor, cheap labor on the railroads.
Yep.
They plug it into the railroads. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, the new financial system have no, I would almost say, have no recognition of color, no recognition of race, no recognition of nationality. It just have recognition of who's plugged and who's unplugged.
That's right.
But the
That's
problem,
right.
but the problem is the whole African American, Hispanic, and Asian community, or even single mom communities that I didn't make it, but I want my children to make it. If I didn't go to college and I didn't reach that financial goal, my thinking of how my children is going to receive and reach the financial goal that I didn't reach is the pathway through college. But the minute you go through that blue pill, you take that easy blue pill, the easy $100,000 college grant, you will now strap yourself to 22 years, 25 years, 30 years of 22% interest. And you always will be employee, because if you want to be an employer and go start a business or go get grants, go get whatever, you need access to capital. And when you have $150,000 debt, it's going to be hard to get access to capital. And SBAs, small business loan, they have so many programs for veterans, minorities, lower income areas, women. But how many of us know, first of all, do you think our parents know, hey, go get SBA loan, you want to open business? So most Asians I know, they play within their little community of church they go to, friends that they have, they borrow each other at high interest loan, and they use their own money, right? When you use your own money, you are 100% capital at stake. But if you're using government given SBA loan, you put down 10%, the government going to give you 90% of that starting capital. But how many of us know these programs exist? So I chat with, before I came on the show, before Alyssa and Vonda invited me to the show, I chatted with like 3 of my SBA lenders. And for the record, they're all white. And I chatted with them, hey, do you guys do things like diversity, like minorities, veterans, and women lending? They're like, we would love to do that. We don't get enough incentives from the government to do more, but there's program out there. We would love to do more. But the problem is nobody is applying. When you're 28 years old, you have $180,000 student debt, and your credit score is 640. How encouraged would you get to apply?
I think it goes back to what you're saying, Jeff, about how much debt you have to take on to go to school. I mean, as one of the 2 millennials on this panel, I can attest that I still have student debt. And it goes also with what Jeff is saying about the rental market. So it's not just that you can't start a business, you also can't buy a home. And then I also want to tie that into what Daniel was saying about fintechs and redlining, because that absolutely still exists in insurance today. Now, in a different manner, but it still exists, because it is probably a lot easier for a landlord with a chunk of properties to insure them at a cheaper rate by each one than it would be for someone to insure it by themselves or on their own. And you can see this if you try to go get insurance somewhere, and if you accidentally enter the wrong date and then, or the wrong address, and then enter the right address, how much that can actually shift. So these are things that we need to be talking about, and Jeff was smart to bring it up, because the debt crisis is really what's propelling this forward. And then, as he said, as this money gets passed down, that gap's going to get.
If our college debt is not show about Experian, our FICO report, our TransUnion, minorities and single moms will have way easier way to get better rate on their house when they buy a house, get better rate on their car, get better rate on their insurance. We know insurance is credit based. Get better rate potentially to finance of SBA loans, get startup capital to open whatever business they want to open, and also obtain home ownership, right? We see home ownership in California go up, like San Diego, like double the last 2 years, right? And then like California is already crazy, right? So just imagine, like now you're saturated with equities, right? You are rich through the growth of our real estate market. You can benefit from it. But the problem is, if you had that saturated college debt on top of you, guess what? You are not going to be able to get that home or get those second home, third home, fourth home rental properties because it's ruining your credit score, right? So I just want to bring a factor that a lot of us might not really think about. This There's a lot of things socially that's affecting minorities and women in the job field, how you guys can climb corporate ladders, right? But guess what? Everybody have access to MLS. Everybody have access to Ref and Zillow. And you know what? These realtors, they take anybody's money. Money is green. Money had no color. But they can't take your money if you don't get access to the leverage of capital, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, in my opinion, like how do we change cultures? And interesting fact, Hispanics and Asians are the fastest growing population in the United States. One is 81% for Asians and 76% for Hispanics. This is 2020 census. And in the Asian household, they're averaging 2.2 children per household. White and blacks are actually decreasing in population size, which is really alarming by like a massive alarming rate at 1.6% children per household. And so as we go in the next 10, 20 years, as America start keep on changing, we have to change how we view college, because if college is going to set our children and our grandchildren back by so far, just imagine when these $68 trillion get passed down in the next 25 years to these 45 million households, how that continue to change the gap of our society. I love our society to be more diverse, more mixed, and more middle class, right? Because that's how we obtain a stable country.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Danny? You were going to say?
I like Jeff is blowing my mind, and then there's certain things that I forget, that insurance and finance are like, they are literally kissing cousins. Because if you really think about it, credit is the one thing that was supposed to help give everybody that nice little equal playing field. It's like, oh, there's no racist bias in credit, right? Except for how you learn it. And then I remember credit has only been around since 1989. It has not been around for 50, 40 years. It's still a fresh concept in the American society.
Yep.
And then you think about, I remember I used to work for Capital One, and I was a part of a study that did things that were like, why aren't, I'm not here for repping Capital One or anything, but like there's no initial deposit, there's no, overdraft fees, none of that, right? And I'm like, why aren't we getting the deposits from like the minority groups, or like who live in the rougher areas or something like that? And the study come to find out that there's no transparency in banking or no transparency in insurance. A lot more people will go down the street to the check cashing place because they have a list on their wall saying that they will cash your check for a fee of $5, and they'll pay that fee because it's transparent, versus a bank who says there's no overdraft fee. And then there's an overdraft fee, like it's super illegal. And insurance is almost on the exact same ballpark, where I was talking to the CEO who, Alyssa, you and I both know his name is Chris, right? Chris is opening up. He's opening his own. Like the only parallel I can think of is Buddy Insurance, where Buddy Insurance gives you the ability to buy a really cheap, on the spot, personal line insurance policy for like me and my kids. We live in California, so like we'll go to the beach surfing in the morning and go skiing at night. Yes, humble brag, I know. But I want to be able to insure my bikes. I want to insure my surfboards. I want to insure all the equipment that I'm going to go snowboarding in. And Buddy Insurance it was really easy. $25. It covers everything for the entire day. It's bite size and it's transparent, and it is what it is. And it allows people to kind of understand that insurance is kind of there to protect you, versus the perspective of like, at least my parents are Mexican. My mom is white, but my dad's Mexican, right? And in the same time, we never really had insurance. We had insurance because we had to by legally, but we never, like, if a car got into a situation, we didn't claim it because we felt like we were being victimized, and sometimes we were. Or the fact that minorities, if you want to talk about generational wealth, get you a life insurance policy. you may not reap the benefits, but your children will have instant
100%.
generational wealth. Like, it's insane that we don't have life insurance policies beyond, for minorities and whatnot. So those are so many different opportunities, but nobody would know that unless they had the education.
So let's go back. I mean, I think you need to say more about this, this buddy insurance, and maybe put some links in the chat, right, for people, because like I don't want to just talk about, options and things that are out there. I want to make sure that people can have, additional resources, right? So if this is an area where particularly, Jeff, a lot of stuff that you were talking about, right, around, SBA loans and these kind of things, and different types of insurance, or making sure that people have access to the resources where the information can be found, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the key, because that's where, knowledge is power, right? And you talked about, do you have the gold? Do you have the mirror, right? And we know that cream is the rule of the world. So that's what it is. So we need to make sure that people have, for life, Wu-Tang, we need to make sure that people have the information, right, that they need. So yeah. So okay, great. We got that link in there. All right. So now, I mean, let's talk a little bit about ensure equality, and let's talk, about the mission, and how did you say this, we need to make a whole ass company to do this work? How did you get to that, that place? And then let's get into the vision and the work itself.
Thanks, Vonda. Yes. So, as Danny said, we met through a sexist rant on Facebook, and I'll let Danny talk about that because I think that's key. And we both were kind of going through our moments where we were recognizing the disparities that different people faced within the industry, and it's always been on the face and always been on the nose. I mean, if you are outside of the industry or even tangentially connected to it, you recognize the makeup of it. I mean, it's about equal parts men and women, but that's not represented in the leadership. And if you take a look at it from the whole, I think there's like 20% non-white people represented in the industry as of 2020 numbers. And we're in the middle of a great resignation, and the insurance industry has actually been facing that before 2020 happened. It was like 2018, 2019. That's when people really were like, I don't know if I want to be here anymore. Let me consider my options. And so when Danny and I met, it was very much a, yes, we found somebody else who cares about this. What do we do? Because I had the vision and the goal of we need to hold people accountable, but I didn't know quite how to do it. And that's where Danny's InsureTech site really came into play. So Danny, why don't you talk about that sex experience? I think it's great. And then we can talk about, go for it.
I mean, so to talk about like recruiting really quickly, like I work for an amazing company where 70% of the leadership are women. The CEO is a badass woman. I see her in the chat. Hey, Margot. So going through and trying to find really good talent to come into my InsureTech consulting firm, I got to the point where it seemed like all the people who were really qualified to come on board with us were all women. Yay. But they were women in companies that were not being promoted fast enough. So I was like, fuck that. I'm so upset. And I went on LinkedIn and I just like, la, 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 la. And then one of our mutual friends who works at this small little company called the Hartford decided to link us together. And then we were like, this is crazy, but we're sick and tired of like just talking about things, like that's great. Let's get it all out. But what the hell are we actually going to do to keep people accountable? So her and I came up with an idea of coming up with a nonprofit, kind of the same business stance as Rolex. Most people don't know, but Rolex is a nonprofit. Hospitals are nonprofits. It doesn't seem that way because you're being charged up the wazoo, but in the end of the day, that's the business model of insurance quality. And one of the products that we're coming out this year is an accountability piece of our nonprofit called Medusa Score. Medusa Score is going to be a kind of in the parallel of like Glassdoor meets NerdWallet, where it's going to be resources, but it's going to be a place where people can actually go. Both employees, employers, and consumers can go online and give a score to an insurance agency, company, carrier, MGA, wherever, the whole gambit of insurance. and basically score them culturally. Nothing about their services, that's for Glassdoor, that's for Yelp, but for us, we know exactly about culture. Why are you coming on here and allowing all these people to like step on you or having all of this, right? The accountability piece is that once you have enough scores aggregated, they're going to have a scoreboard. They're going to have like a report card. Yeah, you scored really well on the diversity inclusion part, but you don't have any women in leadership. You scored really low on that. How about, we have programs that will allow you to attack that situation and actually help move the needle in the right direction and keep people accountable. If people don't want to interact with the platform, that's completely fine. The score will be, it is what it is. And eventually we'll have the ability where people can actually go to Medusa Score, see the scores of these different carriers, these agencies. And if they want to buy a policy off of them, they'll have the ability to go directly from Medusa Score straight to the carrier or straight to the agency and have that ability to connect with the company that matches their values, and move that direction in the right direction. My thing is hurt them in their pockets, hurt them where it hurts, right in the pocket, right? That's how
right.
That's how you get.
So what I love about that is it sounds like back to that piece around transparency, and really giving people an opportunity to have real insight, right? So it's because it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? And you have no way of knowing what you don't know. And so to have um the availability of a platform and a way to go right to that transparency in a clear way is extremely important. I think it's a really good model. Say more about how you came up with deciding to use Medusa as as that the reference.
You want to tackle that, Danny? Because then I want to go back to the value-based piece of this.
Yeah, just good to talk about Medusa really quickly. Like, so not to brag, but I like to vacation in Italy, whatever. And when I
I love that. I mean, so when I'm ready to go, you can give me all the places to go to.
relatable, right? Like when you need to get away, go to Verona, not a biggie.
Okay.
So I went there with my husband a couple of years ago, and I was walking by a like a tourist group, and they stopped right in front of this house that had a giant symbol of Medusa on the door. And the lady who was giving the talk was talking about like how Medusa back in the day would be a symbol for safe haven for people for women, for men, for children, for prostitutes. It was a sign of protection and a sign of of making sure that this is a safe place for you to go. And then and Alyssa and I were sitting there drinking our wine as we usually do, coming across the idea of like Medusa was wrong. Like she got raped and then she got put on oh no. She was legitimately blessed because now she is a symbol of protection. And if you read the stories of Medusa, she only turned people who were bad people into stone, but not everybody who looked at her. So there was a misconception. So I'm like, I want to weave that into the fabric of of keeping accountability. Medusa will get you if you let her.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And
Hey,
Dottie was
V.
agreeing with you around that, around that too. And Allie had put a comment in the chat about, companies they all say they on these bandwagons, all right, and they have these marketing. I mean, okay, we are what 24 days away from the first day of Black History Month. We want to see all these damn companies with all their lies and nonsense. And in the meanwhile, how about the article just came out yesterday? Microsoft, was it Microsoft or Google? I don't remember because it doesn't matter.
It's
One of
Google.
them, it was Google,
It
just
was Google.
awarded they top 4 executives all this extra money or whatever. Meanwhile, they told the employees they can't even get cost of living inflation.
But the streets, right? the streets talk back, right? So right now, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook is rating Google's employees. So they're leaving on a massive level right now. And you know what? It is what it is, right? So they made a decision.
Can I talk? I want to go back to the value base, and I do want to talk about Allie's comment because it's really, really good. And it was one of the reasons that Danny and Megan and Kylie and I, the 4 founders of IE, chose our logo, because we saw so much signaling out there in the world, this virtue signaling of we're going to change our logo rainbow in the middle of the year, and then we're going to make sure that we feature Black people in February, and that's it. Speaking of Vonda, we should put the link for the Black Speakers Collective in the chat. So if you have not hired a speaker for Black History Month, make sure that you honor this list. But to go back to the value piece, most of the workforce is going to be millennials here in the near future, if it's not already there. Millennials and Gen Z care about buying based on value. Not just do they like this product, but do they like that company that it's associated with? And they want to be associated with companies that care about the same things that they do. By and large, these generations care about diversity and inclusion, as well as saving the planet and, a multitude of other things. I myself will make buying decisions based on that as well. So the whole point of what we're doing isn't just to lift the voices that don't normally get to speak in these spaces, isn't just making sure that there's accountability in place for people that say that they're doing all the right things, but it doesn't manifest downward. It's so that people can be active and conscious consumers as they buy insurance. Are these companies treating their employees well? Are they treating their customers well? And are they perpetuating that throughout the rest of what they do?
Yep.
Can I jump in? So this is first time I heard this, right? Like, no, I just got all this live. And coming from, last couple of weeks binging The Wire, for those of y'all haven't seen it, I grew up in the 90s, and, I'm from the DMV area, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia. And, our area, there's an area called Baltimore. And Baltimore is known for great things like crabs. And then also Baltimore known for the show The Wire.
Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, John Hopkins, and also known for the show called The Wire.
Mm-hmm.
And The Wire is probably one of the first show about the U.S. drug scene, the war on drugs, and also how the war on drugs have affected Black community to the core, right? The brokenness that we feel in 30 years later. War on drugs was started 40 years ago. So think about that for a second. Yeah. 40 years, the effect that it left behind. Yep. 40 years, the effect it left behind our society. But there's one line I want to drop it here. Medusa, right? You guys are policing the drugs. Police, 5-0s, they protect and serve. They police the drugs. Detectives, they go after the money. So as you are rating corporations on their levels of hiring practices, do they practice what they preach? Do they follow their campaigns of we hire minorities, women, immigrants, veterans, right? If they say they hire veterans, are you really doing it? If they say they hire women, are they really doing it? What's your leadership score on minorities, women, veterans, whatever? But there's a whole other side to this if you want to make real change. And that's the next level, take it up another level. And that's a challenging level because now you're messing with the money. Mm-hmm. You want to fuck with the man, you got to fuck with the money. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I keep on bringing like 90s rap references and quotes, but I'm sorry.
You ain't got no references and rap quotes that I don't know about.
I got one more skill set. I got one more skill set than these rap quotes. So, but let's go back for a second. So SBA is broken down by thousands of banks in America, from Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, the top big ones, Bank of America, to local community banks like credit union, like Jacksonville Credit Union, right? So you have middle guys, right, who specialize in SBA loans. They target any small business. SBA 7(a) loan is a small business loan in the United States, right? where the government take on 75% of the risk, the bank take on 25% of the risk, the borrower put 10 to 15% down, or sometimes even up to 20%, and as low as 5%. Bank decide because the risk score, they decide if you are 5% down payment person or 20% down payment person. Based on that decision, sometimes they can encourage a loan to go through, or sometimes discourage a loan to go through, if you know what I mean. And for capitalism to happen, whether become an insurance agency owner with State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, Quantum, or any other companies, you need infusion to capital. So infusion capital starts at the bank loan sector. These, just do a Google and then put in SBA 7A, and then you can see all the SBA lenders, right? So we can put on SBA lenders, and then you can about just a couple 100,000 of them. And then the next level up to me is get into the decision making of all these SBA banks. Say, hey, out of $2 billion you guys brag about last year, the SBA lending you did, how many of them went to veterans?
Mm-hmm.
Here's statistics: 1%, 1%, 1%, 1% minority, 1% women, 1% veterans. So we can never get to our goal of achieving success of increasing the diversity sector in corporate America if the people in the shoes of the decision makers who are diversity can never get money.
Mm-hmm.
So the second part is, in the insurance world, we have this thing called InsurTech, right? And I swim in that little sector right now. And InsurTech have a thing called InsurTech founders, and they rely on angel investors, venture capitalists to believe in their idea, in their visions.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I checked, there was 81,000 on search results for venture capitalists. You can double check that results. It's on LinkedIn. Type LinkedIn venture capitalists and hit people and see how many shows up. And and all these companies that's out there. Jennifer Linton, who's a famous digital InsurTech company out of Richmond, Virginia. Shout out Charlottesville, Virginia. And she told me alarming statistic, because she's part of this group that's called Startup VA. 1% of total VC money went to women founders in InsurTech world. 1%. Our industry have a 65 to 70% workforce of women.
Yes.
And less than 1% of the money went to founders of women. Just sit back and let that sink in for a second. Either somebody's not asking for the money, or someone not getting approval for the money. But if you guys want to take that to the next level, you guys got help the
Come
money
on
flow.
over, Jeff. Come on down.
First and foremost, you are twins. We're twins, because we are Medusa's score. She's going to grow. We're going to go into different industries beyond just insurance, obviously. So what all I'm hearing is that you, me, and Alyssa need to get on a call beyond this. So when we expand into the financial and part of Medusa score, is that now we have somebody who can map quest that for us. Perfect. I'll put it down right here. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I do want to make a point, though, because Jeff, you said that we were the police. We were making sure it was out there. We're not policing anything. What we're doing is allowing people's voices to be heard through Medusa. So we aren't coming after them. This is really about consumer behavior and whether or not people want to deal with it, and whether or not their values line up with that. Because if somebody goes on to Medusa, right, Danny, and they'll enter the score and it's not the score that they want, we can't do anything about it. They can only be the ones that change what's going on within their structure to make sure that their employees feel differently about the place where they work.
Well, you guys are bringing transparency, right? You guys want to say, hey, we want to bring decentralized opinions to the mass.
Yeah, yes. I would call us more of a third-party accountability partner, because honestly, we don't want to be throwing terrible scores out there. We don't want the industry to look bad. We're a part of it. We worked here. We want this place to be great, and we want it to welcome others in. We want to move everybody forward, because right now there's either, I think Allie was putting it in the chat, people are putting out there, oh, look, we're doing it. And as we know, it has either faded off completely. Vonda and I have had these conversations. It's either faded off completely, or it's starting to kind of like not really feel that way, or the marketing doesn't match, what's actually going on inside. So we can all do it, but we've got to do it together.
Yeah, we'll just display the ones that obviously have the better score, because that's just more positive. And we have a whole slew of lawyers and psychologists who are going to help us create the hard data and the soft data. So,
but yeah, Jeff, you are welcome to help. We would welcome you coming in and helping us get that money to like make sure that disparity, starts moving in the other direction.
And I'm writing this down.
Yes. So Malika said it, right? Malika said it was like the reporters making the truth known, right? And because that's what it is bringing transparency, bringing the information that people need to the forefront, right? So, for example, tomorrow on the group chat on the Radical Change at 8 a.m. Pacific time, right? We're going to be talking with Jackie Abram again, who wrote Hush Money, the Hush Money book series, Hush Money, and Hush Money 2. And yeah, you got it right there. And my new ones, Hush Money 2, she mailed them to me today, so I'll have those soon. But mine are right there. And Jackie is also talking about, that documentation and providing that information, right? We're going to have the CEO of Speakfully that's going to be talking about her platform and her vision around helping to bring transparency out. Because really, if we think about trying to ensure that equity becomes real, right? And not just something we talk about, and not just something we use as a buzzword and a hashtag. We have to be working on all cylinders, right? We need to release ourselves of that scarcity mindset and pull it together and bring people together, and bring those things into the forefront. So as we wrap up today, and we're going to be having these conversations weekly as well. What are some other, or I don't want to say what are some other, what do we want to leave the audience with today? From a standpoint of how to think about and something that they can put into practice for themselves this week, whether it's looking to see, what your current life insurance policies are, whether it's examining your company paid or personally paid health insurance plan, whether it's looking at your homeowners and personal policies. I'm not an expert in this field, but give the audience some takeaways around insurance this week, and maybe some things to think about for next time.
Jeff, go nuts. I feel like you're just ready to go on this.
So I have a friend named Rude, and his parents are immigrants from Haitian. He served our country in 2 tours in Afghanistan. And he just recently joined Quantum. And I had this conversation with him. I said, look, you're Black, you're immigrant, and you're a veteran. You literally represent 3 sectors that our country owe a lot of debt service to, right? But when you join Quantum, and before that he joined Allstate, which he followed my footsteps, and he literally just reached me out there in the internet world, find me on Facebook. And I told him, I had this conversation with him. I had like a little pep talk, right? TED talk. And I said, you have a lot of weight on your shoulder right now. Like when Jeremy Lin decided to pick up a basketball and check in that game, playing for the Knicks, the Linsanity era begun. He was destroying a myth, right? About Asians are not athletes. Asians can't dribble a ball. Asians cannot be successful in NBA. And then I had the same conversation with Ruud. I said, hey, look, there's like 3% of us in the financial industry that look like you and me. We got to be successful. We got to be successful once the people that we touch, the people who look like us, who are our community, we got to put them in a better place. So a tragic strike them, like an accident, like a house on fire, like someone passed away, that they have a financial means to continue tomorrow, that their tragic did not determine their life, the tragic did not determine their next generation or the follow generation's footsteps. So that's our social responsibility number one. Social responsibility number two is to inspire. When you have a black man in San Antonio have a respectable, successful, well-practiced financial office, financial agency, you are going to inspire the other 16-year-old, 15-year-old who coming up say, hey, you know what? Do I have to go to college? Do I have to go to college for 5 years and get in 150,000 or I don't know, 300,000 debt, right? To be able to hold a $80,000 job a year.
Mhm.
So I told him, I was like, look, what we're doing is transparent. It's transcending a neighborhood, it's transcending a culture right now. So you have a social responsibility to be successful. And whenever you get tired, think about those social responsibilities and then let it keep on pushing forward. That's my TED Talk.
And I'm glad we came to it. That was great. That was great. So hey, we wrapping up on the hour now. So I'm gonna, let us all say goodbye. But I just have to say this was a great premiere episode. The group chat, radical equity. I think we did the thing. Dottie, Malika, everybody, Allie, thanks so much for joining. Dylan, hey, keep on shouting us out. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.